Alright, I have a blast chiller that's not getting cold enough. Alright, so we're just going to open up here. I'm going to make sure there's no ice buildup. Because it's a blast chiller, the unit does get shut off after cycles, so it's rare that you'll see one iced up. So let's fire up the unit and see what happens. So I'm getting an evap probe alarm, which is fine. That's for defrost. I'm getting a needle probe, which is fine. So you can see 66 Fahrenheit is my box temperature. So I'm just making sure both my evaporator fans are running. Because it's a blast chiller, this thing cools down crazy fast. You can hear the fans are really high RPM. But both my evaporator fans are working. We're all good. Condenser fans are working. Condenser's clean. You can hear the compressor running. Check my solenoid. It is opening. We do have power there. Next, I'm going to check my sight glass. You can see it's flashing like crazy. And my pressures are 4.8 and 146.9 psi. Alright, we're going to start by figuring out our suction pressure. So, because this is a TXV, we're going to start out with our TD for our evaporator coil. So it's going to be anywhere between 10 and 15 Fahrenheit. I'm going to use 15 Fahrenheit. I'm going to use the higher number. So based on our box temperature, currently 66 Fahrenheit, we're going to subtract our evaporator TD, which is 15 Fahrenheit. And that's going to give us 51 Fahrenheit. So now we're going to go to our PT chart. We're going to find 51 Fahrenheit. And our vapor pressure is 105.6. 105.6 psi. Okay, next we're going to check our head pressure. So all that's going to be is ambient plus 30 Fahrenheit. So 67 plus 30 Fahrenheit equals 97 Fahrenheit. So we'll go to our chart again. So 97 Fahrenheit is 226.7 psi. So 97 Fahrenheit equals 226.7 psi. Alright, so based off the 66 Fahrenheit box temperature, we've determined we should have 105 psi suction pressure, and then based on a 67 Fahrenheit ambient temperature, we should be at 226 psi. So as you can see, our head pressure is way down and our suction pressure is way down too. So this is telling me that we're low on charge. Alright, so with the unit running, my head pressure is about 142. That's going to be enough for me to locate a leak here on my high side. So I'm going to test the high side with the unit running. So this unit's pretty clean. I don't see any signs of oil anywhere, but I'm just going to do a quick sweep test, see if we can find this leak. The pressures are really low, so it should be a pretty noticeable leak. We shouldn't have to put in any nitrogen, hopefully not, to find this leak. So I'm just gonna go nice and slow. Spend a couple minutes here sweeping this whole condensing unit on the high side. Make sure all those factory welds were done properly. Alright, so far so good. It's about half the condenser here I've sniffed out. You're gonna check all these roto locks. You know, they tend to leak too over time. And like I said, the leak's pretty big, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. My meter's probably gonna go crazy once it does locate the source of the leak. Alright, so now I've turned the unit off. Okay, pressure is 11 psi. I want to try and test my suction side now for a leak. So I need the pressure to come up. With this meter, I probably only need like 40 psi. I've gone down to 25 psi and found leaks. I want to try to go as high as I can. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pop off this solenoid coil. And I'm going to try to equalize the system. So I'm going to grab the magnetic solenoid actuator. I'm going to pop this on the solenoid body. And we're going to wait for our pressure to slowly come up. So you can see it's already starting to go up. It probably takes about 5-10 minutes on this type of system for it to not quite equalize, but just get the pressures high enough to where I can test. So while I'm waiting for that to equalize, I'm going to pull out all these racks and all these evaporator covers so I can get a good look at this evaporator coil. So I have 60 psi suction pressure. That's going to be more enough, hopefully, for me to do the test. And if it's not, I will reclaim and put in nitrogen with a trace of 404A. But yeah, we're already picking up something on the coil here. Alright, so we're picking up something in the bottom section here. So I'm just going to take my time here. I'm trying to pinpoint where the leak is. So I'm going to turn down the sensitivity on this guy and see if we can find the exact location of this leak. And at 60 psi, that's a pretty big leak if this thing's screaming at me already. So I don't think it's on this left-hand side here. It might be in the middle U-bend here. But no, it's not staying steady. Yeah, it looks like it's on this right-hand side U-bend. I'm just going to try to reposition the camera here so we can get a better look. So yeah, somewhere on this right-hand side. Definitely getting a hit here. Yeah, it's one of these right-hand U-bends. Definitely leaking like crazy. Alright, so at this point I'm going to try to pinpoint it with some soap and bubbles. So I'm going to spray the two bottom ones. So you can see that middle U-bend is definitely leaking. And if you actually look at the one just above it, that one's leaking as well. I didn't even think the leak was going to be there, but so we have at least 2 leaks here. And just get a better picture here. Yeah, we have 2 leaks. You can see that third from the bottom U-bend is leaking. That second one from the bottom's got a pretty big leak too. Unfortunately, this is not going to be repairable. There's probably a bunch more leaks too. So our charge here is 70 ounces. I'm going to pull the charge just because the refrigerant's going to leak anyways. And I want to see how much of our charge that we did in fact lose. So because we're reclaiming R404A, going to reclaim this as a liquid. And we're going to reclaim through our high side here. My solenoid magnet's still on the solenoid. And we're going to reclaim the system, weigh it, and see how much we lost. So we're already at 9 ounces here. I'm going to slowly start opening it up more and more. Probably take a couple minutes to reclaim this. Alright, so we've reclaimed it. 1 pound, 7 ounces. Alright, so there's only 23 ounces of the 70 ounces left, so we've lost 72% of the charge. So for those of you that are not super familiar with these blast chillers, all it is an oversized evaporator. In this case, there's 2 really big evaporator fans moving a lot of RPMs. And the whole point of it is to take cooked food, so 160 Fahrenheit food, and to drop it below 40 Fahrenheit. That's that unsafe zone we don't want to be in. You get about 90 minutes to do it. On a unit like this, it gets done really, really quickly. Okay, I did check the pressures on this, and I broke down the pressures. I didn't really need to. The whole point of that was so that if you're calling for help, you know to say, hey, I have low or high suction, I have low or high head pressure. That's super important when you're calling in for help. You don't want to just call in and say, hey, the sight glass is flashing. We want to know why. We want to make sure the coil's clear, the fans are running, everything's good. So just make sure you know your pressures when you're calling in for help.